Hi, I'm Astrologer Penny Dix and welcome Cancer to your astrological overview for everything you'll need to know to navigate the cosmological twists and turns of 2025. So, this is for the Sun in Cancer, or the rising sign, which is also known as the ascendant. Also, some people like to listen to their moon sign. So if you have your moon in Cancer, then have a listen. So what is going on in the sky this coming year, 2025? Because we've had a few years of roller coaster kind of psychological, cosmological, astrological energy. And I think since the beginning of 2020, when we had the pandemic, which was when Pluto and Saturn came together and Jupiter and Saturn came together, and it was just, there was a lot of kind of dramatic energy that doesn't often happen. And of course, Pluto has just moved out of your 7th house, Capricorn, where it has been for about the last 18 years, and it will have brought some commitment, some solidity, some transformation in relationships. Also, it will have ended some that were cracking around the seams anyway, but it will have helped some of you to rebuild relationships that were failing. So in many ways, it's actually been quite helpful for you. But Pluto, on November the 19th, 2024, finally moved into the sign of Aquarius, which is your 8th house. And it's going to be here for 20 years. So how is this going to affect you? Because the 8th house is the part of the chart to do with joint finance, transformation. It can be wills and legacies and all that kind of stuff. And it's also the house of commitment and endings and beginnings. And it's the part of the chart where we can really go down deeply into our shadow side. And that's Pluto's domain, because even though it's Aquarius, which is really an air sign and up there and kind of out there in the community and connecting with the community at large and all those kind of higher frequencies, Pluto is the god of Hades, and actually Pluto rules the 8th house anyway. So it's in comfortable territory. So it's going to be taking you to places that you never dreamed you could get to. However, I add a caveat to that. It will be truly, wonderfully transformational. Just hang on in there. Because there will be, when there are aspects and squares and conjunctions that will come up along the way, there will be some tricky moments, but they are challenges for your personal growth. Also to help you grow joint finance. So that is the major kind of energy that you are going to be now getting used to with Pluto in this part of your chart. But what else has been going on? Because, of course, you've had Jupiter in Gemini, which is your 12th house. Now, the 12th house is also about the psyche, the soul, our deep inner psychological self. It can also be where we suffer from depression. And it can be the place in our charts where we just feel imprisoned, restricted. We want to break out, but we can't because we just can't break free. With Jupiter in this part of your chart, which is Gemini, I think what you tend to do, Cancer, is almost pay it lip service and say, yes, I'm fine. But inside you are absolutely not. You are just cracking up. And Jupiter, over the last year, has been expanding those feelings and getting you to a point where you were not probably able to contain it. So Jupiter going through your 12th house has been quite tough for you, Cancer. But the good news is that on the 9th of June, it will move into your sign, Cancer. And this is your first house. This is like coming out of a very dark place where you never thought you would get out of into the light. 9th of June, make a note of that, because you are going to feel renewed and regenerated when Jupiter comes into this part of your chart. Now, because you're going to be feeling that much more relaxed, one of the things you have to be mindful of is that you don't sit back and comfort eat and go, oh, life is just so wonderful and I'm so happy and all of this worked out and everything's fine. Because what one can tend to do with Jupiter in the first is overeat. And remember, Cancers are feeders and nurturers. They like to feed, they like to be fed. So Cancerians are prone sometimes to weight gain if they're not careful. It's probably something Cancerians always have to keep an eye on. But it's much better to have this energy in your first house than your 12th house. And it'll be here for a good year until really about the middle of 2026. Next, we need to look at Uranus, the planet of the unexpected, the planet of change, of shocks, of earthquakes. Have you had any earthquakes in your life? Has it been disrupted and turned upside down over the last 7-8 years? Probably, because it's been in your 11th house of the community at large. This can also be our hopes, our wishes, our dreams. It could be that things that you had hoped for, planned for, got disrupted, changed, redirected. And I think in many ways, having this energy here has been quite disruptive for you and quite challenging. And the good news is that in 2026, Uranus will fully move into your 12th house. Now that also potentially could be tricky, but bear with this, stay with me, because Uranus is going to give you a glimpse of what it will be like to have Uranus in your 12th house, Gemini, from about the beginning of July to the beginning of November this year, that it doesn't fully move into Gemini, which of course is an air sign. So Uranus is much more comfortable in an air sign, whereas Jupiter that you've just had here is in a fire, is a fire planet. So fire and air, combustible, not so helpful. Uranus in your 12th house, I think you are going to wake up big time. It is the planet of awakening, the planet of rebellion, the planet of enough is enough. I think you're going to shock people with your truth and frankness. I think you are not going to take any SH1T from anybody, basically. And that can only be a good thing. It's also going to be very invigorating for you on an inner level. I think you're going to toughen up, wake up, be rebellious, come out and say it how it is, and people are going to be surprised. And whoa, they better get used to it, because this energy is going to be here for about the next 8-9 years. So they're going to have to get used to you like this. And let's also look at Neptune and Saturn, because they've been in your 9th house. Well, Neptune has been here forever. Well, not quite forever. That was a slight exaggeration, but I can't remember the exact amount of years. But Neptune takes forever to go around the sun because it's so far away. Now, this part of your chart is Pisces. Pisces is very much about the intuition and our psyches, our soul. And Neptune rules Pisces, so it's been very at home here. And I think you have very much, whilst Neptune has been here and it rules Pisces, longed for peace, for space, for water. You know, you're a water sign. And I think you very much yearned for just to be left alone to kind of look at the ocean, for example, or a lake or a river, running water, whatever it is. I think the last few years have been quite tough for you, Cancer, and you've really needed space. And you value that alone time. Now, Neptune is going to be hovering on what we call the midheaven of your chart, the MC. Now, this means it's right at the top of the chart. This is where you come out into the public eye more. And you know what's interesting, Cancer, is Neptune, of course, is about our imagination, our psychic kind of abilities. Because remember, we're all psychic, and you're a water sign. So, you know, you are very tuned in to spiritual kind of frequencies. And Neptune here is going to have you feeling a little bit braver about coming out and saying what you feel and see in terms of connecting with these higher frequencies. Now, Saturn, over the last 3 years, has also been in this part of your chart, which, just to remind you, is also about higher education. So you may have chosen to refresh yourself with something, to relearn something, to learn something new. But there will have been an urge in you to, a thirst, if you like, for knowledge. And it's also the part of the chart to do with long distance travel. So some of you will have wanted to do a lot of traveling. Now, Saturn, excuse me, is the planet of structure, containment, and boundaries, and timing. Remember, you know, my lovely guy that does all my tech stuff for my YouTube channel says, slow and steady wins the race. He's right, you know, slow and steady wins the race every time. And so with Neptune and Saturn coming together at the end of Pisces, and then just dipping their toes from April, May and June into Aries, which is your 10th house and the part of your chart to do with your work, your career, whatever it is that you're passionate about, your soul path. Saturn is helping you put structure and form to the dreams and ideas and plans that you have for how you see your professional life unfolding over the next few years, especially over the next 3 years. Now, it doesn't matter what age you are, whether you're retired or not, this energy is there and it is going to change things for you. So even if you don't or aren't at the moment following anything that is a particular passion, I really advise you to strongly not let this energy pass you by, because, you know, astrology is a map. It gives us a clue of the energies around that we can utilize and use to our best advantage. So that with this wonderful structured energy from Saturn, giving you the opportunity to put structure into dreams, to manifest, to make ideas and dreams that you have about things, topics, subjects you're passionate about, you can do it with this energy. You've got a 3-year easy window because Saturn will be in your 10th house. But April, May and June are preparing you for what you can expect once we get into 2026. You won't have to wait long in 2026 because these two join forces at the first sort of beginning degrees of Aries in February 2026. And remember, this is about a whole new cycle of your life, because there are 12 signs of the Zodiac, and the 12th sign is Pisces. And these two planets, Neptune and Saturn, have completed another round of the whole Zodiac. So it's about completion of one part of your life. And the movement of Neptune and Saturn into your 10th house and Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac, is new beginnings. You have a new path opening up before you, which can be incredibly exciting. So that's the major movements of the major outer planets that I fondly sometimes call the big boys or my big boys. Let's have a look at what some of the inner planets are doing, because we need to talk about the retrogrades. I mean, there is far too much to go into great depth and detail with all the energies that are happening next year. And remember that I do my weekly live streams on a Sunday night, that's Central European time. And I do a live stream with the week ahead astrology and the full moons, the new moons, the month ahead, what we can expect. And when we have significant transits or retrogrades or conjunctions or aspects, I will do a separate video to support them. So you can follow that throughout the year. Now, Mercury, our planet of communication, is at the beginning of the year direct, but still in what we call its shadow, because Mercury went retrograde in Sagittarius towards the end of 2024. And it actually went direct in Sagittarius on the 15th of December 2024. So by January the 1st, it's at 19 degrees, and this is in your 6th house. Now, the 6th house is the house of your day-to-day routine. It can be health issues, it's service to others. And so there could have been, with Mercury retrograde towards the end of 2024, some health issues that came up that you needed to give attention to. And I think what I'm saying is that when Mercury is in this part of your chart, or any of the planets actually, because there is another retrograde in Sagittarius later in the year, that it's really important to not overlook or ignore if you have health issues which are kind of tweaking away and niggling at you. Make sure you go and get things checked out so you can get the right treatment. So the next retrograde we get with Mercury is in March and April, and this is in the sign of Aries at 9 degrees in your 10th house of work and passion, your soul path. Don't think of Mercury retrograde as a bad thing or a frightening thing. I'm recording these whilst Mercury is retrograde, because today is actually the 2nd of December. And, well, actually, I'll touch wood. Nothing terrible has happened yet. I'm doing them slowly and taking my time with them, because I want to make sure I get all the information as correct as I possibly can. So back to Mercury. Retrogrades are really about re-looking at, renewing, redoing, slowing down, just having a look. Yes, sometimes things do go awry and we get technical problems or outages, but you know, those happen anyway. It's just that I think we go, no, Mercury retrograde, and it isn't always actually anything to do with that. It's just, it is what it is. But you can work with these retrogrades in a positive way by taking time out to re-look at things that you've left on one side. So for instance, with Mercury retrograde in Aries in your 10th house of work and soul direction, soul path, passion, from March the 15th at 9 degrees, you can go back and think, oh, I haven't looked at this for a while. Maybe I should think about redoing this or seeing if there's a way I can introduce this back into my work, whatever it is that you might do. And it then retrogrades back into your 9th house, which, remember, is also quite a spiritual house. So you may be getting some intuitive ideas with this Mercury, kind of firing you up into ideas about how you could actually make something that you've learnt work for you in a really kind of positive and structured way. And Mercury goes back to 26 degrees of Pisces and goes direct on April the 7th. Now, the next retrograde we have is in Leo, fiery, royal, regal Leo, ruled by the sun. And this is your second house, of course, which is the house of finance. The house of finance, economy, how you make your money, what you do with it with another, because it brings in the energy of the 8th house, which is joint finance and shared resources. And also the second house is about how we value ourselves, because, you know, that says a lot about us and how we spend our money. Are we always caught in a fear of lack rather than staying in a feeling and a frequency of abundance, that there is always enough, that my cup runneth over? Because if we're caught in a fear of lack and loss, then actually it affects how we feel about ourselves, because then actually it affects our self-confidence and our self-worth. So it's always quite good to check in on that. And this Mercury retrograde in July and August in this part of your chart, it goes retrograde on July the 18th in Leo at 15 degrees and direct again on the 11th in Leo at 4 degrees. Now, also what this may be doing is giving you a chance to re-look at different ways for you to make some extra income, because, you know, income's pretty important, isn't it, for survival? You know, the bills keep coming in and we have to keep making sure the money keeps coming in to cover the bills and pay for the food and all the rest of it. So, you know, I do understand how easy it is for a lot of people. So please don't think I'm not knowing or not aware of the many, many hundreds and thousands and millions of people who are in a state of lack. And all the thinking positive in the world is not necessarily going to help them. All that can help people when they are in that kind of state, I feel, is they have to try, and it's about their attitude and what they can do, how resourceful they can be to find ways to change their situation, to not allow themselves to become victims to their situation. And I know this has to be incredibly difficult, especially to, for instance, refugees and war-torn areas. But we have to be resilient. And, you know, it's like, how many times do you knock me down? Well, I will just keep getting up. I will get up one time more. And, you know, for you, Cancer, you have a hard, tough outer shell. You don't often show how you truly feel, because what you do when you are feeling not okay is you retreat literally into your shell. And of course, you do this metaphorically. You will retreat into your home and you will hide away and keep away from people as a way to manage these unmanageable feelings. So, interesting energy. Now, the final retrograde that we have with Mercury is in Sagittarius again. So remember, this is your 6th house of health and day-to-day routine. But this is in November, and it actually retrogrades all the way back into your 5th house, which is Scorpio. And the 5th house is about our creativity. So it's almost like maybe something health-wise slows you down a bit, but it actually is quite fortunate because it gives you a chance to have a look at some of the creative projects that you haven't had time for, to catch up with things so that you can take advantage of some time out because, you know, the universe has sort of said, I think Mr. or Mrs. Cancer needs a little bit of a rest. And so it finds a way to actually kind of just give you that rest for a little while. And it goes direct again in Scorpio at 20 degrees on November the 29th. Now, the next planet we need to move on to is our planet Mars, the planet of energy, action, assertion, sexuality. And it's also, of course, our god of war, anger and aggression. Now, these planets like Mars and Venus, now both Mars and Venus are having retrogrades this year, which is rare to get it, both of them going retrograde in the same year. But it's what's happening. In fact, Mars has gone retrograde towards the end, or no, it actually goes retrograde on the 6th of December 2024 in the sign of Leo, and it retrogrades all the way back into Cancer. Now, on the 1st of January, it's at 1 degree of Leo. Now, remember, this is your second house, and this is to do with your finance. Now, of course, it's retrograding back into your first house, which is you. This is all about you. And it's going to be here till February the 24th. What it's what it's doing for you is giving you an opportunity to review your whole situation, to review your life situation, to think about, where do I want to go? What do I want to achieve in 2025? What about me? Because Cancer, you're very good at nurturing others and always being there for others, so that it's sometimes at the cost of yourself. And I think this retrograde will give you a chance to actually just retreat a little bit into your shell, kind of with permission, if you like. So as your astrologer, I'm giving you permission to retreat into your shell. And you'll finally poke out and have a little look around by February the 24th. And then it will keep moving through your first house until it then re-enters Leo, your second house. Now we need to look at Venus. Excuse me. Venus, which is the planet of love, beauty, relationship, the divine feminine. And Venus, it always makes me think of that beautiful Botticelli painting of Aphrodite rising from the sea foam with her beautiful long golden hair and in that beautiful shell. And there is something about Venus is like the higher frequency of love and relationship. We have an asteroid called Juno, whom is much more about marriage and commitment and that kind of side of relationship. Whereas Venus is more about beauty and self-care, and also it's about self-worth and money. Now, this is interesting because Venus is going retrograde on March the 2nd in Aries, which of course is your 10th house of work, passion, soul direction. And it goes retrograde on March the 2nd at 10 degrees. And you're having a little think. You know, we've had Mercury was doing this as well for you, wasn't it? It's going to go retrograde into, into your 9th house, which is Pisces. And it's giving you time to think about how you can make money from a sideline. It's like whatever you're doing, even if you're retired, it doesn't matter. There will be passions that you have, talents that you have, that you want to explore and exploit. And why not, Cancer? And Venus here is saying, I'm going to help you, give you a little bit of a heads up on how to make this a little bit of a money spinner. And it goes retrograde all the way to 24 degrees of Pisces, which is your 9th house, saying, Well, you might have to let one thing go, or one thing might have gone from your life. So leaving space for something new to come in, because it then goes direct on April the 13th at 24 degrees Pisces. So just have a sip of water. It gets very humid and cold here in Gozo. And I intermittently have the air conditioning on with the heat so that it just dries the air up a bit. But it also, of course, dries up my throat, which is why I keep clearing my throat. So I do apologise. Let's now move on to the eclipses. Because, yes, we have eclipses this year. We have 4 in totality. And not in totality, but in total, we have 4 eclipses. And I thought first I'll just remind you what a solar eclipse is and what a lunar eclipse is, because a solar eclipse is when we have a new moon. And this is because the moon moves between the sun and the earth. So therefore, the moon blocks out the sun's rays and casts a shadow on parts of the earth. Now, if you have a total solar eclipse, that's when it goes deathly quiet and dark. And if you've not experienced it, it's something I wish for you to have on your bucket list, even if you have to travel somewhere to experience a total eclipse. It is awe-inspiring. It really is. One can see why the ancients used to see it as it used to presage the fall of a leader or the death of a king or an emperor or a queen. The interesting thing is that they actually do seem to have that effect, because symbolically the light goes out. Well, in a country or a realm or a kingdom, the leader, the king, is the light, you could say, of the country. And when he dies, it is as if the light goes out. So I suspect that through the centuries that astrology has been around, and it's been around for nearly 2,000 years or longer. Remember, the 3 wise men in the nativity story were astrologers, and they'd looked at the heavens, they'd looked at the astrology, and they knew that somebody particularly important was going to be born. And so they followed that star. And, I think that's quite interesting. I mean, it's kind of not really talked about in the traditions that we have with the sort of Catholic and Christian church. But, they were astrologers. And then, of course, in the kind of 1900s up to sort of really the 80s, 90s, astrology was seen as a kind of a stage show, like stage hypnosis. It was horoscopes, it was telling the future, it was fortune telling. And it lost its credibility with the reality that the fact that it is actually an incredibly important and accurate metaphysical science. So there's a little lesson. It's just I like to get that in every now and then. Now let me tell you what a lunar eclipse is, because a lunar eclipse takes place when the Earth comes between the sun and the moon. And then, of course, the shadow covers the moon. So the Earth's shadow covers the moon. And if you see a total lunar eclipse, then you will see the moon apparently turn red, which again is an awesome sight. So when are these eclipses? Well, what's happening is the nodes, which are a point in space, which are the ecliptic path. Here we go again, clearing the throat. They're the ecliptic path, and what they represent, we have a north node, which is our collective destiny, also our own personal destiny. And the south node is our karma. It's what we've brought in from past lives, or what we have karmically attracted to ourselves in this life, that the lessons that we need to learn. So wherever these nodes fall, the eclipses fall. And obviously, if you have personal or significant points in your chart connecting eclipses, then it can be meaningful for you. And the first eclipse I want to talk about, because we've had the nodes in Aries and Libra. So the North Node has been in Aries and the South Node has been in Libra. The North Node, now the nodes move backwards. So the North Node is going to move into Pisces and the South Node is going to move into Virgo. So the first eclipse we've got is on March the 14th, and it's a total lunar full moon eclipse in Virgo. And it's at 23 degrees and 58 minutes in your third house. Now, this is the part of your chart to do with communication. And it's a full moon. There's something here about recognizing that the way you write or communicate or talk, you need to be a little bit more accurate with what you're saying, because Virgo is very particular. Virgo likes to make sure it's got all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. So I think with communication, you are concerned that you get something right. So there's something about this lunar eclipse saying, either it's done, leave it alone, you've done as much work on it as you can, or you need to do a little bit more before you can let it go. Now, we have a new moon partial solar eclipse on March the 29th, but this is still in Aries, so that's why it's a partial solar eclipse, because it hasn't quite moved into Pisces. And so this is the North Node, and it's at 8 degrees and 53 minutes. Of course, it's in your 10th house of career and passion and soul path. So it's a new moon. These are new opportunities being offered to you. But I think because it's eclipsed, you know that you need to just keep quiet about it. Because you know what? If we let our dreams and ideas out too quickly, either someone steals them or we find that in some way they lose their kind of luster. You know, it's like seeds. If we keep looking to see if they're growing and we just keep putting the earth back, are you growing? They don't. They just wither and die. Now, that is on the 29th of March. Then the next pair of eclipses is in September. We have a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces, so that's with the North Node. So this is about karma and destiny, where you're meant to be going. And it's on the 7th of September in Pisces at 15 degrees and 24 minutes in your 9th house. Now, this can be matters at a distance. This can be about travel. This could be closure with something to do with something or someone at a distance. Sometimes it can bring about a move or a change of country even. So it can set a whole chain of events in motion. Now, the next eclipse is a new moon partial solar eclipse, and it's on the 21st of September in Virgo. And so this is a South Node eclipse, so it's about what you still have to deal with, what you're bringing in, or the lessons of this life that you still have to learn. It's at 28 degrees and 59 minutes, and it's in your third house of communication. But it's a new moon. So I think it's you picking something up that you've left to one side and thinking, you know what, I'm going to have another go at this. There is mileage in this. I am going to look at it. Or you return to a conversation that you've had with someone that just didn't quite go the way you wanted it to. So you decide the best thing is to bite the bullet and say, look, let's clear the air and try again. That's what I feel this particular energy is about for you. But now, Let's move on to the major transits. Now, I haven't done hundreds and thousands because there are innumerable transits throughout any year. But I just want to look at the major ones to give you a heads up. And then as I go through the year ahead, I will, of course, in my live streams, be looking at what is happening for everybody. And obviously, every month I do the new moons, the full moons. I talk about the eclipses. I talk about the month ahead, the week ahead, and also any major astrological transit I will do a separate video for. And also remember, if you do want to book a session with me, for me to look at your natal chart and look at the transits, and maybe look at one particular or several areas of your life, go to my website, pennydix.com, and email me on penny@pennydix.com. I have closed my booking system because I want the control. Yes, I'm a control freak, and I want to be able to say, hello, Jennifer in Switzerland. Let's have a look at our calendars and see if we can find a suitable time that suits both of us for your time zone and my time zone. So that's the way I like to do it. And I think it just makes it a little bit more personal and less clinical. And that's just me. That's the way I am. So I want you to think back, first of all, to what was going on for you at the beginning of November 2024. The 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th. Now, in America, and it was, of course, the United States general election. So there was a lot of anxiety and tension in America, a lot of divisiveness and a lot of disagreements, a lot of disputes, a lot of arguments, and a lot of anxiety around. Now, you may have also felt this in your personal lives, because I think on one level, we will all have been collectively affected by what was going on in the United States, because whatever happens there affects the rest of the world. And with the problem spots we've got in the Middle East and in Eastern Europe, then these things are always going to come up and kind of sort of, red flag us. Now, what was happening then, back in the beginning of November, astrologically, was we had Mars in Cancer, your sign, right? And it was opposite Pluto in Capricorn, which of course is your 7th house. So you may have had, because these two planets, Mars can be anger and aggression and assertion. It can also be energy and all of that kind of thing, but it was opposite Pluto in your 7th house of relationships. So there could have been some tension, some arguments, some disputes, or just general uncomfortable feelings with somebody that you're very close to, or several people you are very close to. It could have just been a really stressful, difficult time. Well, what I want to say is this aspect is happening again at the beginning of 2025. In fact, it's exact on January the 3rd. However, both planets have changed signs. So Mars has moved into Leo, which of course is your 2nd house. This is the house of finance, of value, of how you make your money. And Mars is a fire planet. It's assertion, it's aggression. This is wanting to get something sorted out financially. And it's opposite transformative Pluto in Aquarius in your 8th house of joint finances. There are disputes at the beginning of the year about joint finances. And, this could be with a business colleague, it could be with your partner, with your husband or wife or living in partner, love partner. But anyone that you share resources with, there could be some anxiety and tension around the financial setup. Don't worry, don't overthink it, because by April the 27th, I know that's quite a long way off, it will have all been resolved satisfactorily, because you'll get the same energy again and you'll go, here we go again, let's just get this sorted. and the resolution will come organically. Now, the next transit I just want to remind you about is that Saturn conjunct Neptune in April, May to the beginning of June in your 10th house. It's not exact until February 2026, but the tension of Saturn conjunct Neptune is Saturn trying to help you put some form and structure into imaginative ideas you have for your work and the things that you are passionate about. Next, we need to look at Uranus, because Uranus, of course, is the planet of the unexpected, the planet of shocks, the planet of sudden change, also freedom of speech and rebellion. And you know, Cancer, there's quite a little rebel in you in there somewhere in that shell, isn't there? And of course, it's been in Taurus in your 11th house, which is the part of your chart to do with your kind of dreams and projects and hopes and wishes. Now, it makes a gentle sextile to Saturn in Pisces, which is now back in your 9th, which is the house of long distance travel and higher education in March, April, June and July. And that's just helpful. It's bringing some potentially unexpected travel that you think, okay, how can I work this out? How can I make this work for me? So you will look at how you can actually make it work for you. And then Pluto in your 8th in Aquarius is also sextiling Neptune in Aries in your 10th. And this, of course, is again the part of your chart to do with your career and your passion. This is in April, May and June. And it's transforming these imaginative ideas you have into something concrete, into something quite, well, you think of Pluto, think of plutonium. These are sort of like nuclear bombs. It's like you're going to have an absolutely nuclear idea that you want to actually get in motion and get out there and start working with. So that's also going on. Now, then we have Uranus in Gemini when it has moved for a while into your 12th house, just waking up your inner self, this inner psyche, and it sextiles Neptune in Aries in your 10th. And this is in June, July, August and September. So what it's doing is, with whatever it is that you're working on for your pleasure, even if it's your passion and work, and even better if you're making money out of it, it's also helping you change on an inner level. It's kind of having this kind of byproduct of personal self-development in a way that is quite unexpected and beneficial. Then we need to look, we have a tricky square which can be challenging between both Neptune and Saturn in your 10th house in Aries. They're squaring Jupiter in your sign, and that's in June and July. And what this is doing is you're getting carried away with these great ideas. Jupiter is also firing you up and saying, yeah, let's go for it. Let's do this. But there's something here about Jupiter is making you run before you can walk. So somewhere you need to bring in Saturn's energy, which is in Pisces in the 10th house, trining Jupiter. No, Saturn is in, Saturn is in your 9th house, and it's trining Jupiter and in your 1st house. And what Saturn is saying in October, November and December is take it easy, slow down. Everything comes at the right time. All of this will fall into place at the right time. And also you have Saturn in Aries, and that is going to be also asking you to slow down. Finally, we need to look at Pluto in Aquarius in your 8th house of joint finance, making a lovely trine to Uranus in Taurus in your 11th in October, November and December. And that is going to be helping you transform some of these ideas and plans you have to a point where you can manifest them. You can actually make a lot of your dreams a solid reality this year, Cancer. You know, Cancer, it's an interesting year for all of us. As I said at the beginning, since 2020, we've been on an absolute roller coaster of cosmic astrological energies. It's just been, the astrology just keeps pushing us to change and to grow. And none of us are exempt from it. And if we have not embraced the opportunities for change and growth, personal growth, that the astrology has been offering, then we'll get left behind. And with Pluto in Aquarius, it's really asking us to wake up. We have to join the technology revolution. We have to actually embrace where humankind is going to progress towards. So if you embrace the challenges and the twists and turns that are on offer this year, it can be a very productive year, and a year that by 2026, you can really start seeing the results, reaping the rewards of the seeds that you choose to sow throughout 2025. So there we go, Cancer. That is your astrology for 2025. Thank you so much for coming and listening and watching. And please remember to like, comment, subscribe to my channel. That would be super lovely. Remember, I do weekly forecasts for the week ahead. I do monthly forecasts for the month ahead. And also I do the full moons, the new moons, and any other interesting transit when it comes along. And please, as I said, I really value your support. Thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a wonderful year. Success, health, prosperity, and may your dreams come true. Bye for now.